Good morning, everyone. My name's Louise Butt. I'm the Business Development Manager for the South Coast Centre of Excellence in Satellite Applications. We are part funded by the Satellite Applications Catapult and the UK Space Agency, and we're hosted by the University of Portsmouth. And today I'm going to be talking to John Yates. John is a very, very experienced individual. He's been working in the satellite industry now for about 35 years. And in fact, he was involved in the first commercial space program for Europe, SES Astra. Good morning, John. Nice to have you with
Morning,
us.
Louise. Good morning.
Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. You're going to be talking to us a little bit about satellite navigation. So first of all, I thought I'd ask, perhaps you could give me a little bit about how it started.
Yeah, sure. Well, satellite navigation started with the US system, the GPS. It started to become operational in the 70s, and it was conceived as a means for improving the accuracy of America's nuclear deterrence.
Okay.
And a system was put in place for that. But then it was quickly realized that it could be used for other things. And during the course of the 70s and the 80s, the GPS system that we've all become familiar with started to come into use. The first public use of it, commercial use, I should say, was really in the early 90s when a maritime receiver was launched. That was quite a chunky thing, much bigger than the small handheld devices that we have now. And then by 1992, the GPS market had already reached $100 million, only 2 years after it was launched commercially for public use. Then in 1997, the first GPS system, navigation system for cars, was introduced. And by 2003, 20% of GPS receivers were actually used for aviation. So
Okay.
that was how it evolved. It started as a defense system, but very quickly became adopted by the public.
Okay, so it very much sounds like definitely by the transport sector, and that's been some of the primary drivers behind the adoption.
Absolutely, that's right. Yeah. Although, of course, it has expanded. Every GPS satellite has an atomic clock on it to provide the accurate position fixes. And it wasn't long before people realized that these atomic clocks provided an extremely accurate timing reference. And so now, when we talk about GNSS applications, we refer to position, navigation, and timing. And there are many applications are related to the timing functionality. Mobile phone networks are synchronized using GPS timing, and power distribution networks are synchronized using GPS timing. So yes, it has gone way beyond what it was originally conceived for.
And I suppose that's one of the most interesting things about the space sector is, lots and lots of downstream applications have occurred just because of, some of the wide-ranging technological uses that are possible. I know you're very keen to talk about the Galileo system, and so I was wondering if perhaps you could tell us a little bit about the system and what it's going to be offering over and above some of the current PNT systems.
Yeah, sure. So, well, as I've said, the GPS system started being used for applications that people just hadn't thought about before. The original system had selective availability on it, so only the US military had access to the 3-meter accuracies, and the public accuracies were between 20 and 30 meters. However, in about 2000, the US government removed the selective availability, so everybody had access then to 3 meters accuracy. But with some of the applications that are being looked at now, for instance, a driverless car, 3 meters just doesn't cut it. You need 30 centimeters. That's the sort of thing. So there was an increased need for better accuracy. Plus, because the GPS is also being used for aircraft positioning, aircraft landing, for critical national infrastructure, as I mentioned, power distribution, synchronization. A need for a higher level of integrity was also needed. As the GPS signal became more used, people started developing ways of jamming it. and interfering with it, or even spoofing, where you actually make somebody think that they're somewhere they're not. So the original GPS system was never developed with these features in mind, and it's clearly there was a need to look at what the next generation would be able to offer. And that's really where Galileo came in. So the US was quite clearly a huge innovator in this sector, but like any innovator, you often get leapfrogged by the next people that come along. And Galileo was able to start with a blank sheet of paper, take all the lessons learned from the US GPS system, and come up with a system which was able to address all of the challenges that were faced by the first generation. And that's increased resilience to jamming, to spoofing, increased accuracy. So it's of the nature of accuracy that could be used for driverless cars. And that's really how Galileo came about.
Okay. And in terms of, you mentioned the accuracy. I mean, what are we actually talking here?
The Galileo system should be capable of between 20 and 40 centimeters accuracy once it's fully deployed.
Okay, so it's a real game changer then from 3
Absolutely
meters.
specific. And in fact, driverless cars require a higher level of accuracy than actually an aircraft. An aircraft coming into land, there might be, say, a meter or so on height. That would be fine. Or a runway is 20 meters wide. So you need to fit off 30 meters wide. Whereas a driverless car is on a road that's probably 4 meters wide. And so the accuracy required by a driverless car is far more stringent than the accuracy required by an aircraft landing.
And I suppose the same could be said of drones and UAVs as well.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. But I suppose one of the concerns that I've certainly heard from people is because it's a European derived system, what's going to be quite clear on people's minds, particularly in the UK, is how Brexit's going to affect their ability to access these services.
That's true, yeah, and there are a lot of concerns around that. Galileo offers several services. It offers an open service, which will continue unchanged, and that's the service that most public recreational leisure users will use. It also offers a high performance service, which again that's just being rolled out at the moment, and that will remain available for the public. But the key service that will not be available is the PRS, the public regulated service, which is the high integrity service, which will let you know, which will inform you if you're being spoofed or jammed, or it keeps you informed of the integrity of the service you're receiving. And if you're not receiving the signal you should be getting, you'll know about it and you can take alternative steps. Whereas with the open service, it could be vulnerable to jamming or spoofing. So for 95% of the population, they won't notice a difference. Galileo services will be available as they've always been. But for critical national infrastructure and for perhaps civil defence, critical applications, then they will want a higher level of integrity. And that's now what the UK government is looking for, is how can the UK government complement what's available in the public services with additional levels of integrity checking and protection for the critical signals.
Okay, so in reality, then most of us would be pretty much unaware of the change in systems, other than we've got higher level of accuracy. Because presumably the current system that people are using, we know, as you've described earlier, have some of the challenges around spoofing and jamming anyway. So it's for most people, it's just going to be this increase in accuracy that's the major area of benefit for them.
Absolutely, it is, yeah. And of course, There are other second generation systems coming along. I mean, Beidou, the Chinese system, employs second generation technologies. GLONASS, the Russian system, is also rolling them out, and GPSs as well. Although the GPS, that they have their existing first generation infrastructure, so they're having to replace that as satellites come to the end of life. But within the next 5 to 10 years, the GPS system will be a fully operational second generation system as well. So there'll be multiple systems to choose from. And if you look at your mobile phone, you can often see you're looking at different systems there.
Okay, so it's certainly something for everyone to watch. And I suppose there's this idea that because we've been so used to having, really good quality GPS systems for such a long amount of time, that you don't think that it's still under development. There's still incremental changes happening that is improving year on year what's available to us, and ultimately what applications we can start to bring on stream because of that. So it sounds like it's still a really exciting time for satellite navigation.
Yeah, absolutely, and particularly so in the UK, because of course now we're having to develop our own capabilities for some of these critical technologies.
Okay. Well, that's been really fascinating, John. Thank you so much for your time. It's great to get some of your insights. And I look forward to speaking to you again soon.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.